Hi, my name is Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian channel, and it's Friday, so we're going to be talking about financial things again today. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is something that I've heard others refer to as wealth insurance. And it's not necessarily something that's just for the wealthy, although it's something that probably a lot of wealthy people have been doing for a lot of years without your knowing it. But it's simply making preparations to have a little bit something extra on hand in case of bad times. And this is something that we've talked about in earlier videos. You can go back and look at some of those. But I wanted to go into a little bit more depth as far as how we might be able to act as a little bit more prudent stewards of God's resources. And so I wanted to start in Proverbs 22:3. It says, "A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it." Well, a lot of people will just laugh at anybody that is making any kind of prudent preparations. They think it's something that's silly to be doing. There are even some Christians who think that if you're making any kind of serious preparations, that somehow you're not trusting God. And while your preparations can get to the point where it does start to become a problem with trust, being prudent has never been in conflict with being a faithful servant of God and trusting in God still. Also in Proverbs it says, "In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all he has." That's found in Proverbs 21:20. And it's something for us to keep in mind because we live in an era of living paycheck to paycheck. Well, that pretty well defines the foolish man who devours all that he has. A wise man is going to set aside a store of goods. And again, we're not talking about becoming imprudent to the point where you don't think you have to rely on God anymore. We're not talking about tearing down your barns so that you can build bigger ones. And there's sometimes a fine line in between reasonable preparation, reasonable wealth insurance, and no longer trusting in God, but trusting in yourself. And so always be doing any preparations that you might be considering in a prayerful manner with the idea that you're trying to be the best steward for God that you can. But again, what is wealth insurance? And that's just kind of a modern day term for being prepared. Preppers for a long time had a bad name. They were kind of joked about, but more and more we're finding that there are people who are seeing the prudence in doing so, especially during uncertain times. And let me mention this. Having a strategic pantry is not going to make you some kind of a nut. Now, we read of people like Mark Zuckerberg and Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates who are building these vast properties, many of which have underground facilities that run over $100 million in expense, where they're trying to prepare something for a disaster that they think might be happening. Now, I'm not suggesting we do anything like that. I'm just suggesting to you that if somebody is giving you a bad time for having a strategic pantry, you might ask them if they think that these billionaires are also idiots for seeing potential danger and taking refuge against that danger. So, wealth insurance as far as a strategic pantry. We had talked earlier in earlier videos about after you have brought your check home, after it's been taxed, and after you've made allowance for what you're going to be giving to God, if at all possible, take the first 10% right off the top after those two items, taxes and contribution, or contribution and taxes in the proper order. But try and take 10% and use that for some type of prudent savings, prudent planning. And a strategic pantry is one of those things that I believe everybody needs to be thinking about. It can start very simply, and it needs to start very simply. So often we look at things like this and we think, well, I don't have any extra money at all, or I have hardly any extra money at all, so I can't do that. But you'd be amazed at what just putting $20 aside into a few pounds of beans, or $20 aside into a few pounds of rice would do for your peace of mind, knowing now that you've got several weeks' food lined up. Maybe not the choicest food you'd like, but certainly something that would get you by during hard times. And then again, this idea of a strategic pantry, you go through your home and you see what you use regularly. That especially items that are not going to perish as quick as other items. And these include things like kitchen spices and certain canned goods that you know you're going to use, to just different things you use around the house. You go into your bathroom and see the types of things that you use every day, into your kitchen and see the paper goods and different products you use every day, into your laundry and look at those types of products, and even your garage and see what you need to keep your automobiles in proper shape. But the idea is we're doing this to try and have something that's already saved up in today's dollars. 5 quarts of oil that cost just about $8 maybe 5 years ago are now going to cost you over $20 today. And so if you'd have bought those 5 quarts 5 years ago, you'd still have them stocked up, and you would have paid a whole lot less for them. And so this is what I mean by being strategic about it. Try and find things that you know you're going to use anyway, and just try and keep stocked up on them, not against some kind of Armageddon where you're putting things away for years and years, but just prudently having some things set aside to where if you have a bad month or two, you can still get by just on what you have. And so a strategic pantry is something that you know you're going to use, that you're buying in today's dollars, because you know inflation is going to make it cost more tomorrow. And it's something that will give you a peace of mind. It's also something that will allow you to help out others if you see them fall into bad times and you're still doing good. You can share with them things that you might have. And so these are the types of things that we're talking about when we talk about a strategic pantry. Another thing that's very prudent as far as wealth insurance is to start investing in a little silver and gold if you have more money. But silver is something that's very easy to buy. You can go down to your local coin store and just buy $1 face value of silver coins for about $17 or $18. And then you've got something that's going to hold its value. Well, why do that? Why start saving up in things like precious metals? And the answer is because, first and foremost, inflation, but second, because there are things that are happening right now that can put your household and your finances out of your control if you're not prepared. The latest research I have seen indicates that just about every major central bank in the world, including the U.S. Federal Reserve, are making plans to be looking into some kind of a central bank digital currency. They were so worried about this that Congress actually passed a law that you can't do that, but that doesn't stop them from passing a law tomorrow saying that you can. And Congress is famous for bending their own rules. And so, but the idea behind a digital currency is reclaiming all the other currency and forcing you to use a digital currency that's kept in a digital wallet that's usually run from your cell phone or from your computer, but it's held by the central bank, by the Federal Reserve, or by a conglomerate of big banks. And you might say, well, what's the problem with that? I do everything just about with a credit card anyway, or with a debit card anyway. And what's bad about that is it puts, if they are able to do something like that, it puts everything under their control. China right now, communist China, has a very similar thing with their central banks, where they are able to absolutely control their citizens to the point where if they do those citizens do something they don't like, they can just take the money out of their digital wallet, and now their citizens don't have any money with which to buy food. Well, you might think that America would never do anything like that, but it hadn't been too long since we observed communist nations locking up their people for some disease that they thought was going to kill the entire world. And we said, well, at least they'd never do something like that in America. We're a democracy. We're a free nation. Only to find out that our leaders locked us up in our houses for weeks on end, only allowing you to go to government-approved places. And so if you're thinking that somehow our government is going to act in a moral fashion all of a sudden if we just allow them to switch all of our currency over to digital currency, you should really think again. It really gives them incredible control. One thing about digital currency, just putting it in electronic form, is it allows them to program each account and monitor each account. And they're able to, by doing that, if you want to go and buy something with this digital currency that they don't think you should be buying, maybe you've had too many sugary items last week or too many carbohydrates last week or whatever they decide, or maybe they think that you're a little bit dangerous and you shouldn't be buying ammunition, and so they just put a hold on your account for buying anything like that to where you go to buy it and you can't buy it. And again, I realize some of these things sound far-fetched, but our government is in the process right now of exploring the idea of digital currency for the American citizens. And again, I think to just assume that they're going to be prudent and forthright and good stewards of overseeing that program is giving them credit for something that they have not proven trustworthy in the past over. So, if we get something like that and you've got some silver on hand to where you can use that to buy things from people who will take it, and there's a lot of people who will take it, you'll be able to at least maintain some control of your lifestyle, especially if the internet goes down for a few days or something like that. And so, again, that's the far end of the extreme. The prudent thing about investing in silver, which is something that I started doing in 1981, so I've been doing it for a few years, is that while it has its fluctuations, it can go way up and it can go way down, over time it steadily goes up and it matches the pace of inflation and usually beats the pace of inflation. I've mentioned this before. When I was a little boy, you could buy a gallon of gas for 2 silver dimes. Because it was about 20 cents a gallon when it was at its lowest point. And now you can take those 2 same silver dimes, cash them in for about $3.60, and you can buy 2 gallons of gas. And so one of the prudent things about investing in things like silver is they typically are a store of value that will hold their value over time. And then there have been other times where it's gone up so much it does much better than just hold its value. And again, look at it as wealth insurance. Don't look at your pantry as an investment. Don't look at this buying of silver and this first 10% that we're talking about getting all these things as wealth insurance as an investment. Just look at it as having it on hand in case things go bad. And then you're not counting on it if things don't go bad or if it should go down for a period of time, because it's not any more than you would your house insurance. You get house insurance, and if your house doesn't burn down this year, you don't say, oh, I just wasted all that money. You're content to not have your house burn down this year, but still you need to have some sort of insurance, especially if you have a mortgage. And so when we talk about wealth insurance, that's what we're talking about. We're giving you some sort of a cushion and other options that you may not have if you don't have something like a well-stocked pantry or a little bit of strategic metals set aside. And then the third part of this wealth insurance category, this 10% that you take off the top after your giving and your taxes, is just put aside a little bit in cash, in paper money. It's something that if you have something like that saved up for a rainy day, then when you have an emergency, you've got it on hand. And things are always happening like that. There are times, we just had a car that had a transmission that had to have repair on it, and well, that was $600 just for a few hours work. And while we have a very fair mechanic and that charged us a reasonable price, we still had to have $600. And so when you've put a little bit aside, whether it's in your home or it's in your bank account, for a little bit of wealth insurance, and this is probably best set aside some at home, it's something that will help you during difficult times. A lot of people just really complain and whine and moan when they have unexpected bills, such as a doctor bill or a hot water heater going out or your dishwasher needing to be replaced or a big car repair. And people always act as if these things are surprises, and yet that's part of life, is not just buying something, but having to maintain it over time or even replace it over time. These should be something that you have some sort of a budgeted account for, to where if you do have these troubles, they will just become something that's a minor irritation instead of a life-changing event. There are more and more people that are going homeless now because they didn't want to have any sort of preparation. They had no food on hand. They had no extra money set aside. They were literally living from paycheck to paycheck. And then when they lost their job and couldn't replace all of the income, even with a new job, their situations just got desperate. You don't want to be in that situation. Now, here's the other end of it. Get the wealth insurance, yes. Be prudent, yes. And I think these three categories, from a strategic pantry to precious metals to a little bit of cash, are all going to be something that you will never look back on and say, boy, I wished I hadn't done that. But they could actually help you get through some difficult times and maybe help other people get through those same difficult times, because we are stewards of God and we are to look after our neighbor. We can't take care of everything they need, but sometimes we can help a little bit, and a little bit of help at times is a big help to some people. Well, here is the caution on this, and I want to read it. It's from the Sermon on the Mount, words that are very familiar to you, found in Matthew 6, starting in verse, I believe, 25. Jesus said, I tell you, do not worry about your life or what you'll eat or drink, or about your body, what you'll wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. And so it's true that if you don't have any regard for the future, and you are trusting in God, that you probably will get by. And the suggestion to have some sort of wealth insurance is never a suggestion as a replacement for your trust in God. And so if this becomes something that's a source of pride for you, and then you don't pray to God, and you don't go to His Word after that, then it's just going to be detrimental to your soul. Don't do it. But as far as prudent behavior, God does expect you to take some thought for the future. That's why these passages talk about in the house of the wise are stores of food, but a foolish man devours everything he has. It's a warning that we do need to take reasonable precautions. But knowing, after having said that, in verse 33 of this passage in Matthew 6, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. We still trust in God, and we still can't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you can plan for all sorts of things. You can build you a $100 million underground bunker if that's what you want to do and you have the money to do that. But we still need to be trusting in God first and foremost. But we also need to be prudent, and we need to be aware of the times that we live in, and the times that we live in are different. I've been here for 63 years now, and I've enjoyed a whole lot of really good things, and I have gone through a few downturns, not just in the national economy, but in my own personal, private financial life, to where it was always good to have had a little bit of prudence and a little bit of foresight to have something in reserve to be able to help me through the difficult times. I'm convinced that that's part of being a prudent steward of God. We still trust in Him first and foremost. We realize everything we have comes from Him, and we don't get greedy with these things. But if you have the proper balance, trusting in God and seeking to be the best steward that you can, then you can start going into looking at things like wealth insurance, to where you have a prudent pantry and prudent savings that will help you in case of times that either you should have seen coming or you really couldn't have seen coming, but at least you've got something now set aside because they are here. Life has a lot of ups and downs in it, and we can't anticipate everything, and I'm not suggesting that we try to, but I am saying if you will trust in God and if you'll be a prudent steward of the resources He's given to you, you're going to find that your life is a whole lot happier, that you're able to take care of the obligations that you do have, and you'll be a more faithful steward of God's resources, I believe, by doing so. Anyway, a few things to think about, a few things to keep in mind, but hopefully this will give you something that will help you in your own circumstances. But until next time, I pray that God will bless you as you try to do your best to serve Him in every aspect of your life to the best of your ability. God bless you.